Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Show podcast. In this episode, we'll be focusing on a crucial aspect of your restaurant's success: reducing costs, minimizing food waste, and doing it in a way that's good for the environment. And who better to guide us through this journey than our special guest, circular economy expert, Savannah Seydel. Savannah is the Vice President of Sustainability and Impact at Better Earth, a leader in sustainable packaging. Savannah, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great and so excited to be here.
Savannah, I've got to be honest with you. I had not heard of the circular economy until we spoke last week, and I had my assumptions about what the term meant, but can you tell us a little bit more about the circular economy?
I'd be happy to. And thanks again for having me in the space. Love the work that y'all are doing and excited to contribute. So I work in the circular economy space, and I appreciate the question because when we think about restaurants today and we think about buying stuff in general, there's a general flow of the way things go, right? We make things from typically extractive resources, non-renewable resources. We take them, we buy them, especially when it relates to packaging, which is the world that I sit in. It's used for an average of 30 seconds or less when you think about a single-use plastic bag. And then we throw it away, right? Make, take, waste. It goes to this magic place called away where it's out of sight, out of mind, and we don't have to think about it again. Except we all know here, and I'm sure your listeners know as well, that place called away is encroaching on us, and it's encroaching on us fast, right? We're seeing plastic pollution everywhere. Microplastic is literally in our bloodstreams, and we have a big problem that we need to fix. And that's where the circular economy comes in. Rather than a linear line where we make, take, and waste, we're really creating value across the value chain in a cycle where we make something, we use something, and then we recycle or compost back where it came from so that we can reuse those materials again.
That's fantastic. That is the most defined answer to the circular economy that I think we were all looking for. Thank you so much. And tell us a little bit more about Better Earth, how long you've been there, what made you join this organization?
Yes. So Better Earth is a sustainable food service packaging provider, right? And we're on a mission to create compostable packaging to help the food service industry have more accessibility to sustainability, as well as make regenerative circularity achievable. That's a little wonky. So what I mean by that is we are working within our value chain, right? So our packaging is made from plants, not plastic. So we're starting at the fields where our farmers are growing the natural materials to make our packaging, down to the packaging itself and ensuring that it is accessible to our customers in price and performance, and then back to the fields where our composters break down that packaging into nutrient-rich soil for those farmers to use all over again. So from field to fork to field, we're really trying to close the loop. I've been with the organization for almost 5 years now and have seen a continued amazing growth. We've more than doubled in size and revenue and are excited to help customers meet their sustainability goals across the United States and Caribbean.
That's fantastic. Can you share a little bit about how regenerative agriculture practices can be integrated into the restaurant industry?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So we were talking about a lot of bad things, right? Plastic pollution, microplastics, we've got global climate change. There's a lot going on. And the exciting thing is that regeneration truly can be a keystone solution to tackling these problems while simultaneously enriching our communities and building our economies and providing more nutritious food for consumers. That is a win-win-win. And at the agricultural level, regenerative practices look like no-till, right? Reducing our reliance on artificial fertilizers and pesticides, all of that bad stuff, intensifying grazing to mimic what a bison herd looked like 100, 200 years ago in the United States, and maximizing crop diversity and crop rotation. So when you do this, you don't need all that bad stuff because nature is doing the work for you. You are mimicking nature. And then all the while in the process, you're able to sequester carbon into the soil, rewild these areas, bring back deer, the bees, birds, and have more nutritious food. And so for restaurants to know, these practices don't have to just be implemented on the food level. While that is, we're incorporating regenerative practices literally into the packaging that we're making, right? It's a plant-based product just like food. So we're partnering with farmers to use under underutilized land, pasture land, depleted soil, and we're planting native perennial crops to that area. Think miscanthus, switchgrass, sorghum. And then year over year, we're pretty much just giving those grasses a haircut. We're just snipping across the top and letting those roots continue to grow. And so a recent excavation found that some of those roots were over 12 feet deep underground. That's doing all those things that I was mentioning, right? Sequestering that carbon and bringing more nutrients in. And a recent life cycle assessment has found that those activities are literally carbon negative, which is so powerful. So we're able to partner with those farmers that are within 100 miles of the manufacturing facility. So this is a hyper localized and resilient system, manufacture that food service packaging here in the United States to support customers around the country. So it's really exciting work. And I would just encourage restaurateurs or those in the QSR space that if you're interested in getting involved, to ask your food service distributors what regenerative practices and products they have available to you. That also helps create that demand for more options in this space. And then to also look for certifications like Regenified and Regenerative Organic Certified. We have a customer, Equator Coffee. They're a big coffee provider across the state of California. They're based in San Francisco, and they have been doing this forever. So not only have they had compostable packaging for well over 8 years, but they've also been dedicated to sourcing organic and fair trade coffees. And for them, Regenerative Organic Certified is that natural next step. And they have already sourced over 1,600 pounds of Regenerative Organic Certified coffee in 2022 alone. So we're excited to see how they grow the program in the next year.
I just want to, that's fantastic. I want to pick up on what you said, being regenerative certified. Now, in the past, I'm sure you're well aware of greenwashing, where these certifications of organic products, et cetera, where sometimes companies kind of take advantage of these certifications. How can restaurants know that this is a authentic certification? What kind of authenticities do you guys provide?
Yes, the circular economy is positioned to be a multi-trillion-dollar economic opportunity because people want to be part of the solution. That also means that bad actors want to get in on the money. So we are seeing greenwashing becoming rampant across the sustainability industry, and it's really disappointing. At the end of the day, when you see all of this terminology, natural, oxo-biodegradable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as a consumer, you're overwhelmed. You want to make the right decision, but you have no idea what to do or where to go. And that can often leave people to throw up their hands and be defeated. So what I would say is, in order to navigate this more complex landscape that we find ourselves in, is to lean into those certifications. Certifications are the third-party verifications that help us weed through the bad stuff and find the products and organizations that are truly authentic to those missions and have been third-party verified to meet those marketing claims. When it relates to compostable food service packaging, I want to emphasize a couple things. Be on the lookout for 2 key third-party certifiers. That's the Biodegradable Products Institute or the Compost Manufacturers Alliance. So that's BPI or CMA. These 2 certifications ensure that that food service packaging has been third-party verified to break down in a timely manner in a commercial composting environment, leave no toxicity to the soil, and is PFAS free. Those are really key elements. What's exciting too is in the legislative landscape in the United States, states are beginning to take heed of this and this greenwashing issue and are implementing truth in labeling legislation. So in several states in the United States, you can only market packaging as compostable if it hits those third-party certifications that I mentioned earlier, as well as being clearly labeled as such.
That's amazing. Jose?
Oh, it's great advice and super valuable. I'm learning so much. Thank you. So I'm curious about composting and what do you see as the biggest challenges restaurants face when trying to implement composting practices?
Yes, composting is growing, especially in the United States. It's been growing at a clip of at least 12% over the last 5 years. A resource I recommend to learn more about the state of the composting infrastructure in the United States is BioCycle's recent survey. They're the leading space from a journalism perspective, so highly recommend their recent report on the state of composting infrastructure. As it relates to restaurants implementing these programs, the number one thing is tackling contamination. You really need to ensure a clean stream, because what you're providing that composter at the end of the day, they have to make into a finished product and sell themselves, right? So oftentimes that contamination, when you think about a composting operation that is front of house, so that is customer facing, can lead to customers throwing in a variety of things that should not be in the bin. Very similar to recycling challenges as well. So first and foremost, my advice to restaurateurs is to really think through your product list and do an audit. This is something that at Better Earth we support our customers with, is reviewing all of your packaging at your location and thinking through what points of contamination you may have and finding compostable alternatives. You'd be surprised at the opportunities and wide variety of compostable alternatives that are out there. Some of the biggest contaminants are single-use plastic cutlery and portion cups. There are compostable alternatives. And so once you do that and you really clean up the packaging that you're providing, this also helps ensure that customers have a very efficient and easy and effortless experience when disposing of their waste, because obviously they want to get out the door. They have things that they need to do too. So we want to ensure that there's a wonderful guest experience when composting. And then next is training, engaging staff at the restaurant level in the waste management process, and really emphasizing to them the role that they play in these broader impact goals, making them feel a part of something bigger than themselves, and branding it as zero waste ambassadors towards these bigger goals that the restaurant or organization has. And then last but not least is connecting with those vendors on the ground and understanding what your local composter needs, what they take and what they don't take, and building that relationship as well.
Wow, that is total.
It's very thorough, Savannah.
Yeah.
The answer is like,
this is my world.
Yeah.
Y'all are entering.
Clearly this is, and yes, we are learning. Jose and I are learning a ton. Our listeners are undoubtedly learning quite a bit. Let's talk about legislation. Can you highlight some key legislative changes coming in 2024 that restaurant owners should be aware of to enhance their sustainability efforts?
Absolutely. This has been such a dynamic couple of years for packaging legislation, both in Canada as well as in the United States. So specific to the United States, where I do most of my research, I would point out a few key trends to keep in mind that I think translate to Canada as well. First and foremost is organics ban. So as it relates to composting, there is more and more legislation underway to prioritize diverting organics away from the landfill, where they'll emit methane, which is several times more powerful of a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, and into the compost bin, where it can create that nutrient-rich soil amendment. We're seeing these in big cities like Denver, Colorado, in New York, and across the state of California. And I foresee organics bans continuing to take steam and something that restaurants would be participating in. Now, another very big trend to keep in mind for restaurateurs as you are doing your procurement is PFAS legislation. In the United States alone, there will be at least 11 states implementing their PFAS regulations January 1 of 2024, so very soon. And this includes food service packaging. So please be aware of what packaging that you're currently buying and ensure that that packaging is transitioning towards PFAS-free and away from fluorine or fluorinated chemicals. So for those that aren't as familiar with what PFAS is, they are a suite of over 5,000 chemicals that were designed to support oil and grease resistance. They are pervasive in everything. And when I mean everything, I mean your floss, your athletic clothing, your carpets, your pots and pans. These things are everywhere. And so the entire consumer goods industry is actively transitioning away from them. And with compostable food service packaging, a way to understand if your packaging is PFAS free is to ensure that it is third-party certified. So going back to BPI certification and CMA certification, the stamp of approval ensures that that packaging has undergone fluorine testing to ensure it has no intentionally added fluorine. And then the last trend as it relates to packaging, just for folks to know, I mentioned it briefly earlier, is that truth in labeling legislation. This is such good news on the packaging front because this type of legislation is finally taking action against the bad guys as it relates to greenwashing, finally making clear mandates that certain terminology cannot be used in states that have truth in labeling legislation so as not to confuse consumers, and is making really clear and standardized labeling for packaging that is marketed as compostable or recyclable recyclable. So consumers know exactly what it is and what to do with it.
Can you talk a bit about cost? Let's say a restaurant chain is looking to transition to sustainable packaging and compostable packaging. Are they looking at skyrocketing costs to make this transition?
That's a great question. It really depends, and it depends on what they're comparing to. With compostable packaging, it is pretty on par with your rigid two-piece plastic container. A lot of restaurants use that rigid black base and clear top. Compostable packaging is now pretty on par with that. So across the board, as compostable packaging has expanded in the market, right, that means that costs are continuing to lower as we are meeting the demand for sustainable packaging. If you think about where compostable packaging began, it started with the egg carton, and we have continued to evolve so far from that. And we are continuing to lower costs, become more efficient, and expand product offerings for the market.
Do you think that companies that are producing non-compostable packaging will end up being, say, fined or penalized in some way, federally or locally?
Yes, this type of legislation is already happening, and it is becoming very big. It's snowballing. So what you're referencing is extended producer responsibility. This is a big hot topic in the packaging space. And the exciting thing about this is it finally puts a dollar amount to the cost of disposing stuff, right? Going back to that linear economy for make and take and wasting, that time when it was that where we threw it away and didn't have to think about it. Well, who did have to pay for it? Taxpayers, right? The companies that produce that stuff, they did not have to pay for what's called negative externalities. Now, with extended producer responsibility, we're finally putting a dollar amount to that cost and that cost to our environment and to our public health, and providing a fee back to that producer. So that goes for all single-use items across all substrates, whether they're plastic or compostable. The exciting thing is that it's often eco-modulated. That's a wonky term that means that if you are bad for the environment, you're going to have a higher fee. If you're better for the environment, you'll have a lower fee. And that helps level the playing field and really support economically access to more sustainable packaging. And across the board, help fund our completely underfunded waste management infrastructure. So you're already seeing EPR legislation in California, in Oregon, and a couple other states around the United States.
That's really great news. Jose?
Yeah, no, I'm blown away. I mean, I've always had a sense, especially where we're located, a big sense of green and practices. And this is just probably the most amazing update I've had. So how do I start? Like if I am a restaurant and I want to move, like I just reach out to you guys and voila, happens?
Thanks for the question. Compostable packaging is pretty available now. I would strongly recommend that restaurateurs reach out to their food service distributor, right? They're going to ask them about compostable packaging and ability to source regenerative products. And if they want to reach out to the Better Earth team, head to www.becompostable.com. So it's becompostable.com, or ask your food service distributor for Better Earth products.
You mentioned some trends, but I was wondering actually if there is a savings for producers that are moving away from it. Is there something for restaurants as well?
Yes, there is. So for customers that are adopting more sustainable practices, this is going to be seen by your customers. Do you know that 3 in 4 people worldwide want companies to produce less single-use plastic? And this is matched in the United States as well. And this is survey data from 2021 and 2022, very recent. So not only is your customer going to appreciate this, but what is fascinating is on a marketing lens, recent marketing data has found that when someone sees the same food in an expanded polystyrene container versus a compostable molded fiber container, they perceive the food in that compostable molded fiber container as higher quality. And you think about it yourself. If you were to go to a restaurant and grab, a hot dog or a sandwich in expanded polystyrene container versus compostable, you might have your own perceptions as well. This rings true to me. Maybe I'm a little biased, but it really does. And so for a restaurant that's leaning into these sustainable practices, not only will your customers appreciate it, but they will truly perceive your food as higher quality as well, more beautifully displayed as well. And, there's marketing benefits to that.
Right. No, definitely. I think that we all have had a situation where you're eating out of a styrofoam or anything like that, and you are imagining that there are little pieces, I'm eating little pieces of it. So I can relate to that. big time.
The microplastics that are taking over our bodies as we speak. But yeah, I think that's a great point, Savannah. It's almost a marketing positioning play in that you're planting the idea, forgive the pun, you are planting the idea that our restaurant is environmentally conscious, therefore it is good for you, therefore your carbon footprint is reduced. And as the education around environmentally sound practices increases, which is bound to do, I think that it's a great opportunity for restaurants to position themselves as one of those environmentally minded, reducing waste and having minimal impact on the environment around them. I think that it's a great play, and it's a space where restaurateurs do struggle a lot of the time in positioning themselves as how are they different from the competition. And this is just another feather in their cap that they can use to market themselves. So I think that's a really brilliant play. So that's all the time we have for this episode. I want to give a big thank you to Savannah Seydel for sharing her valuable expertise on reducing costs and sustainably minimizing food waste. Remember, implementing these practices is not just good for the environment, it's smart business. Savannah, now's your time to plug away. Where can restaurateurs connect with you and learn more about sustainability and sustainable packaging? What's your platform of choice?
Thank you. And thank you for the time. This has been so much fun chatting with y'all. And folks can learn more at www.becompostable.com. So that's becompostable.com. You can find us on social media at becompostable as well.
That's fantastic. Speaking of plugs, this podcast is sponsored by Dine Pricing, real-time restaurant profitability. Dine Pricing uses artificial intelligence to improve restaurant profitability by dynamically updating menus across digital channels like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. That's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks again to Savannah for joining us. Until next week, say goodbye, Jose.
Goodbye, Jose.
Savannah, that was amazing. Thank you so much. We look forward to connecting with you in 2024. If we don't speak, have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, y'all. Thank you.
You.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Have a good one. Happy holidays.
Bye. You too.
Likewise.